Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be shooting the first section of Understanding Scientology Chapter 1, From Dianetics to Scientology, the Evolution of a Cult. Now I'm going to be shooting this kind of over a few days. This chapter is very long and packed full of information, so I want to make sure that I can break this all down for you, and I'm going to put it all together at the end. So you may notice a kind of involvement of makeup and outfit changes throughout this video, but this is all one chapter and it's going to be just a culmination at the end. So get something to eat, get something to snack on, and stay tuned. Okay guys, so we are back covering Understanding Scientology. This is a book by Marjorie Wakefield, who is an ex-Scientologist. I'm going to be covering Chapter 1, From Dianetics to Scientology, the Evolution of a Cult. So she opens this chapter with two quotes, both from L. Ron Hubbard, just to kind of show the evolution of his thought pattern when it comes to his progression into Scientology. So the first quote states, "Writing for a penny a word is ridiculous. If a man really wants to make $1 million, the best way would be to start his own religion." And the second quote says, "Scientology is here to rescue you." Both of these are from L. Ron Hubbard, just at different times. It just kind of gives you a good point as to his thought patterns behind what he was actually doing. So let's get into this. This is going to cover a lot of L. Ron Hubbard's backstory, so it's a lot of facts, and it's going to be kind of all-encompassing. So, L. Ron Hubbard, founder of the curious and controversial cult of Scientology, and author of swashbuckling tales of mystery and adventure, could very well have stepped larger than life from the pages of one of his own stories. Flamboyant, charismatic, messiah to thousands of adulting followers. Oh, it's words today. Hubbard lived by no rules but his own. In an age of anxiety, he offered to those in his thrall the confronting certainty of simple solutions to the problems of life. Yet, as weaver of the complex web of Scientology, he managed to ensnare not only others, but also himself. Lafayette Ronald Hubbard began his life as a center of attention in a large and lively extended family in Helena, Montana, which included his doting grandparents and several adoring maternal aunts. His father, Harry Ross Hubbard, after a brief unsuccessful business career, was caught up in a surge of patriotism which affected many young men following the declaration of war in 1917 between the United States and Germany. He enlisted in the Navy. When the war ended, he re-enlisted as a career Navy officer. Ron's mother, Mary Waterbury Hubbard, was a dutiful Navy wife who was to inherit the impossible task of bridging the gap between a military father who lived life by the rules and a brilliant and unpredictable son whom rules were anathema. As a child, according to his aunts, Ron Hubbard was also possessed to a fused imagination, making up games and stories for amusement of the valuable, attentive adults in his world. From the beginning, he possessed a capacity for fantasy, which he was to carry with him throughout his life. As a schoolboy, to escape the reality of dreary algebraic evaluations and dry facts in history, he would fill the pages of his school notebooks with pages and pages of swashbuckling tales of heroic adventurers in exotic and distant lands. In later years, he created a resume for himself, transforming his most pathetic liabilities into assets of heroic proportions, as if the boundaries between fantasy and reality had become blurred even to himself. Yet ironically, no fantasy life he created for himself could ever match the colorful and improbable reality that he actually lived. So right now we're looking at his childhood. So he didn't like to follow the rules. He often would escape into tales that he wrote for himself. He liked to make up games for his family to play with him. His father was very by the books, and his mother was the one that kind of had to bridge that gap between himself and his father, which kind of leads up into his adult world. L. Ron Hubbard kind of like stretched the imagination, and you can even see that in Scientology to this day, where they kind of just stretch the imagination about what really was going on with L. Ron Hubbard. Like, everything about him is larger than life, and then when you start actually digging into L. Ron Hubbard's past, you find out that a lot of things that are said about him are not true. So, moving on, he says, he once told a friend, "I am possessed with an insatiable lust for power and money." In his greed, he would siphon the energy and assets from lives of thousands of followers whom he began to regard with a sneering contempt. Although he created the vast and complex world of Scientology in which his followers could lose themselves for years, he did not want to identify with his marks. By his early 30s, Hubbard acquired a wife and 2 small children. To the horror of his conservative parents, he flunked out of college and had no acceptable skills with which to support his young family. Money was a constant and worrying problem. He soon discovered that the colorful adventures he had been creating for years in his notebooks were actually soluble to a popular pulp fiction magazine of the era. He started slowly, but it was soon obvious that his possessed and prolific talent for writing for these magazines, named for the inferior wood pulp paper stock on which they were printed. His work habits were soon somewhat erratic. He was a prolific, fast writer and would work all night and produce story after story, retiring at dawn to sleep until early afternoon. However, no matter how prolific his output, he could never seem to make enough money to support his profligate spending habits. By the mid-40s, his literary output was beginning to decline. He was well known and respected as a writer of adventure stories, science fiction, and westerns, but he soon realized the limit of his vocation, that he was not going to achieve power and money by writing penny-a-word pulp adventures. The way to make money, he began to remark to his friends, is to start a religion. He once addressed a group of science fiction writers in New Jersey with the words, "Writing for a penny a word is ridiculous. If a man really wanted to make $1 million, the best way to do it would be to start his own religion." In 1949, Hubbard dropped out of sight. Rumors said he was working on something new, a book of psychology. In January of 1950, a mysterious ad appeared in Astounding Science Fiction, a pulp magazine edited by his friend John Campbell, promising, this is the ad, an article on the science of the mind, of human thought. It is totally new science called Dianetics, and it does precisely what a science of thought should do. Its power is almost unbelievable. Following the sharply defined basic laws, Dianetics sets forth physically ills such as ulcers, asthma, and arthritis can be cured, as can all other psychosomatic ills. Now see, here's my problem with this. Ulcers, asthma, and arthritis are not psychosomatic. Those are actual illnesses. Those are not something that is caused just based off of thoughts. Now, some people say that like a headache can be psychosomatic, but an ulcer is not psychosomatic. Asthma, not all forms of asthma are psychosomatic. Now, you do have stress-induced asthma that can be psychosomatic. Arthritis is not psychosomatic. I mean, okay, I'm not going to lose my mind just yet. Hubbard began experimenting with his new science on his friends. He would have them lie on the couch, close their eyes, and follow his commands to remember certain painful memories, particularly memories of prenatal experiences in the womb. To his surprise, Campbell found himself cured of chronic sinusitis. Again, not psychosomatic. He began to tell others about his remarkable new science, and a small group began to form, which became the nucleus of a new organization, the Hubbard Dianetic Research Foundation in Elizabeth, New Jersey. May 1950, the promised article on Dianetics was published in Astounding Science Fiction, outlining the basics of this new science. Shortly afterwards, Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, was released and soon became a bestseller. Hubbard was not modest in his claims for Dianetics. The creation of Dianetics, the book began, is a milestone for man, comparable to his discovery of fire and superior to his inventions of the wheel and the arc. The hidden source of all psychosomatic ills and human aberrations has been discovered, and skills have been developed for their invariable cure. So he is saying that Dianetics is above fire, it's above the wheel, it's above the arc, it's above everything that has ever been done. So Dianetics is an adventure. It can be it is an exploration into terra incognito, the human mind, the vast and hitherto unknown realm half an inch back of our foreheads. You are beginning an adventure, treat it as an adventure. You may never know, be the same again. Early in the book, Hubbard introduced what is called the clear. Dianetically, the optimum individual is the clear. One will hear much of that word, both as a noun and a verb in this volume. So it is well to spend time at the outset setting forth exactly what can be called a clear, the goal of a Dianetic therapy. A clear can be tested for any and all psychoses, neuroses, compulsions, and repressions, all aberrations, and can be examined for any self-generated diseases referred to as psychosomatic ills. These tests confirm the clear to be entirely without such ills or aberrations. The state of clear, Hubbard promised, was a state of mind never before achieved by man. In fact, upon achieving clear, a person would progress from the state of Homo sapiens to a new and advanced state of Homo novus. Dianetic therapy, called auditing, to listen, turned out to be an amalgam of Freudian analysis in which a reclining patient is encouraged to recall past traumatic experiences, ablative therapy in which past events are re-experienced by the patient with their accompanying emotions, general semantics by Kordzakski, in which a person learns to differentiate between subconscious experiences, and psychoanalytic theory of Nandor Fodor, in which the influences of prenatal experiences is explored. Dianetic therapy is basically simple, according to Hubbard. All the events of our lives are stored in the mind in a mental image, pictures, or memories, but they are stored or filed in chains by similar content. So a person may have a headache chain or a pain in the right ankle chain, etc. By directing the patient, called the pre-clear in Dianetics, one who is not yet clear to recall or re-experience the traumatic memories on each chain, the potential of the somatic of that chain to key in or become re-stimulated in the present can be erased. The memory then becomes refiled in the subconscious or reactive mind of Dianetics to the conscious or analytic mind. The success of the auditing session will depend on the ability of the auditor, the person leading the session, to maintain control over the pre-clear and his memory. So what they're saying is, like, okay, if you suffer from headaches, like I have migraines, so every single time you have a headache, that memory, like, it's a picture. So every time I have a headache, there's a picture of that headache, a picture of that headache, a picture of that headache, and they're all stored in like a picture file. So that's like your headache chain. I've broken my ankle several times, so I have a picture of that pain, so I have like an ankle pain file. So then they would like make you re-experience that pain for you to work through what caused the pain and how it felt, and for you not to feel that pain again. And then once you re-stimulated that pain and you worked through the process of what caused it and all that, you refiled that memory, not in your reactive mind, which is your subconscious, but in your analytical mind, because you've worked through that problem. So then you should never have a headache again, or you should never have an ankle pain again, or you should never have, whatever pain again. And then the person doing the auditing is the one the auditor is walking you through like each pain. And they're supposed to keep control of you and your memory so that things don't get out of control, and so that the auditing session success is based off of their ability to keep control of you and your painful memories throughout all of this. So the complete file of all memories of an individual going back in time is called the time track. Hubbard claims that when a person is audited to the point that all subconscious or reactive memories are filed in the analytical memory banks, then he would achieve the state of clear. It would never again suffer the effects of his reactive mind. The reactive mind in Dianetics is also referred to as the bank. The theory is that if a person is complaining of a somatic in the present, i.e. like a headache, then the earlier memory of an experience in which they were actually injured in the head is re-stimulated by getting the pre-clear to recall all headaches progressively earlier in time until the basic earliest memory of the headache chain is reached. Theoretically, the headache should vanish. And that is the basic idea behind Dianetics therapy. So, at this time, the only option for people suffering from painful psychosomatic symptoms were costly and time-consuming was psychoanalysis. The idea of an inexpensive and easy to administer lay psychotherapy caught on quickly. Within weeks, the nascent Hubbard Dianetics Research Foundation was deluged with letters and phone calls about the new science of Dianetics. The letters were coming in at the rate of 1,000 per week. By the end of the year, over 150,000 copies of Dianetics, the book, had been sold. In a glowing article in the New York Times, a reviewer stated dramatically that history has become a race between Dianetics and catastrophe, echoing an idea often stated by Hubbard. By August, there were more than 100 students enrolled for the 1-month Dianetic auditing course taught at the foundation by Hubbard. The cost for the training was $500. In addition, one could receive personal auditing or counseling at the foundation for a fee of $25 per hour. Money was pouring into the foundation. However, because of the extravagant spending habits of Hubbard, it seemed to be disappearing just as quickly. Because of the lack of any formalized accounting or administrating procedures in the foundation, much of the money went straight into Hubbard's pocket. In the first year, it was estimated by one staff member that the foundation had taken in as much as $50,000, to which only about $20,000 was accounted for. So they were taking money hand over fist. Where was the money going to? Straight into Hubbard's pocket, straight out of Hubbard's pocket, into whatever Hubbard wanted to buy. So, by December of 1950, 5 new foundations were established in Chicago, Honolulu, New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. As many as 500 small and independent Dianetic counseling groups were sprung up all over the country. Hubbard had promised that the state of clear was attainable to anyone who successfully completed enough Dianetic auditing to eradicate the troublesome reactive mind. In August of 1950, Hubbard organized a rally at the famed Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, at which he promised to reveal to his enthusiastic followers the world's very first clear. There was an air of hushed excitement in the packed auditorium. Hubbard, the consummate showman, first demonstrated some Dianetic techniques to the audience, saving his surprise revelation until the end of the program. Finally, a shy and obviously nervous young woman appeared with Hubbard on stage and was introduced as the world's first clear. She could, Hubbard claimed, remember every moment in her life. The audience began to ask her questions. What did she have for breakfast on October 3rd, 1942? What's on page 122 in the Dianetics book? Embarrassingly, she didn't know. At one point, when Hubbard had his back turned to her, she was asked what color tie did he have on. She couldn't answer. A physics major in school, she was asked to name some simple physics formula, but was unable to remember them. There were disgusted catcalls from the audience. One by one, people started to leave. The evening was a disaster, yet amazingly, money continued to pour into Hubbard's organizations. The Shrine Auditorium debacle did little to stem the tidal wave of interest in the supposed new science of the mind. Toward the end of the year, however, the initial enthusiasm of Dianetics was beginning to ebb. The American Psychological Association published a report critical of Dianetics, stating that there was a need for more testing, that Dianetics lacked empirical evidence. The flow of money into the foundation tapered off as the novelty of Dianetics began to subside. Several early associates of Hubbard in New Jersey resigned from encounters of the dark side of Hubbard's personality, a very defiant tendency toward paranoia, which would in time sabotage almost every significant relationship in his life. Hubbard's personal problems also began to interfere with the Dianetics movement. Hubbard, while still married to his first wife, bigamously married another woman. This produced a public and embarrassing divorce scandal, which was carried in the newspapers across the country. Hubbard was spending money faster than the foundation could make it, funding his grandiose schemes and unrealistic ideas, was bankrupting his organization despite the best efforts of several dedicated followers to save them. Also, Hubbard was encouraging an exploration of past lives and auditing. This and the lack of promised scientific testing and validation of Dianetics alienated many of the professionals who were involved in the early Dianetics movement. As for the members of the original foundation in New Jersey began to defect, including John Campbell, the editor of Astounding Science Fiction, and Hubbard's first supporter and benefactor. Hubbard's reaction was swift. He denounced each of the defectors as communist to the FBI, a dangerous action given the climate of McCarthyism at the time. In the spring of 1951, the Hubbard Dianetic Research Foundation in New Jersey was sued by the New Jersey Medical Association for teaching medicine without a license. With the resignation of Campbell and most of the other charter members of the foundation, the New Jersey Foundation soon declared bankruptcy. Hubbard produced a second book called Science of Survival, but the book in its first printing sold only a disappointing 1,250 copies. After his mediocre rise the year before, Hubbard was now facing personal and public ruin, having squandered his fortune from his early success of Dianetics and having no other prospects in sight. Salvation came in the form of a knight in shining armor from Wichita, Kansas, a self-made millionaire named Don Purcell, who was an early convert to Dianetics, inviting Hubbard to Wichita with the promise of salvaging the beleaguered Dianetic empire. Alright guys, I'm going to stop there, and I will pick up from Hubbard's salvation and see how things turned around. Stay tuned as I continue on chapter 1 of Understanding Scientology, Dianetics to Scientology, the Evolution of a Cult. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you're notified of every single time that I post a video. In the comment section down below, leave me any questions regarding any of the content covered in this video. Also in the description box you will find my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Also my email is down there below, so that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you have anything that you want me to cover on this channel, you can send it to me on any of those platforms. If I cover the material that you send me, I will shout you out in that video that I make on it. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for me today, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.